Hey guys, oh, let me hit hide on this. And there's my pointer. Okay, so welcome to Wednesday's mini lesson. If you haven't had a chance yet, and if you haven't had a chance to watch the Monday mini lesson, I definitely recommend you start there before you go and watch this lesson, because I go through, break that one down a little bit more, and I model it directly for you. So there's a chart that looks almost identical to this one. Obviously, the topic and the points of view are different, but it's the same concept, and I model that directly for you on Monday's mini lesson. So if you haven't watched Monday's lesson, pause this one now, go back, watch Monday's, and then come back, and then you can join me in today's mini lesson. So for today's mini lesson, again, we're still covering the standard RI 2.6, which is analyzing accounts of the same topic. And I know that it sounds a little intimidating, especially that word analyze. Something about the word analyze gets a little intimidating to you guys or even me, but I want us to remember analyze, it just means closely study. So I want us to closely study these two separate accounts of the same topic. So we're going to do that together today. And we actually have a history article here, and then we have a journal entry here. So two very different points of view. And before we get started, I really want us to look at, just started by looking at the titles. And you can tell how different the point of views are going to be because this title up here is Zebulon Pike and the Source of the Mississippi by George Chester. George Chester wrote this history article about Zebulon Pike and his source, and his quest to find the source of the Mississippi. And then down here, if we look at this title, it says from the journals of Zebulon Pike. And a journal, it's almost like a diary. So this is Zebulon Pike's journal entry, or him just writing in his diary about his own expedition or voyage. So we're going to have this point of view versus his own point of view. So I really want us to pay attention to that as we move throughout this lesson. So what I am going to do is read this to you, stop. We're going to focus on a few key sentences. And then I am going to turn it over to you guys to complete the chart and the short response. So let's get started. So here we have Zebulon Pike and the Source of the Mississippi by George Chester. So let's look at paragraph 1 right here. In August 1805, Zebulon Pike and a group of men left St. Louis, Missouri, to explore the little-known Mississippi River. Their mission, find the river's source, which is where it begins. So their mission, they're finding the source of the Mississippi River. And it's not just Zebulon Pike, it's Zebulon Pike and a group of men. So I would go through and I would underline here, we have the date, we have the people involved, and we have their mission. They're trying to find the source of the Mississippi River. So I would go through and underline all of this. And then we're going to move on to paragraph 2. Pike and his men traveled north along what would become the borders of Illinois, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. A pleasant autumn gave way to a brutal winter, and Pike and his men suffered horribly. But on February 1st, the expedition reached Lake Sangsu, also called Leech Lake. Believing he had found the source of the Mississippi, an exhausted but overjoyed Pike claimed victory. And I would go through and I would underline here, believing he had found the source of the Mississippi, an exhausted but overjoyed Pike claimed victory. Again, Pike being Zebulon Pike. And I am a little thrown off here because it says believing he had found the source of the Mississippi. So I think we might have a plot twist coming up because when you say a term like believing, you're saying he thought he got there, but maybe he could have been wrong. So let's keep reading and find out. And we're going to go to paragraph 3. Paragraph 3 states, but the truth is that Pike had failed. See, we called it. Later, explorers discovered that the Mississippi's true source is Lake Itasca, roughly 25 miles west of Leech Lake. Pike's expedition was a disaster, a brutal 2,000-mile trip made in ice and snow for nothing. So I definitely want us to underline this last sentence here, or make note of, just a mental note, that it's classified as a disaster. He made a 2,000-mile trip, and he was wrong. He thought that he had made or he had found the source of the Mississippi, but he was wrong. And he was wrong by only 25 miles. And I know that might sound like a lot, but if we think about it this way, say we got on a school bus and we went from Clay Charter Academy to the Orange Park Mall, and then we went from the Orange Park Mall back to Clay Charter Academy, that would be 25 miles. So a trip to the mall and back from school, that's just how far off he was. So he drove, he explored for over 2,000 miles, and he was only 25 miles off. So, that's pretty upsetting. So what I want us to do now, and remember, this is a history article by George Chester, so this isn't his personal opinion, Zebulon Pike's personal opinion. We're going to look at that now here. So we're going to pay attention to this article, which is from the Journals of Zebulon Pike. And it says, paragraph 1, January 7th, 1806, made but 11 miles, and then we were obliged to send ahead and make fires every 3 miles, notwithstanding which the cold was so intense that some of the men had their noses, others their fingers, and others their toes frozen before they felt the cold sensibly. Very severe day's march. So I would underline where it says very severe day's march. People's body parts are frozen because it is just so cold in these winter months while they are on this voyage. So then we're going to go to paragraph 2. January 12th, 1806, went out and met my men. A tree had fallen on one of them and hurt him very much. So again, this is brutal. They are struggling. His men are hurting. They're suffering throughout this process. Paragraph 3, January 13th, 1806, after encountering much difficulty, we arrived on Lake DeSable a little before night, the ice being very bad on the river. One sled fell through. And then I want us to look at paragraph 4, which is February 1st, 1806. Left our camp pretty early and arrived at Lake Sang Soo at 2:30. I will not attempt to describe my feelings on the accomplishment of my voyage, for this is the main source of the Mississippi. And I would definitely underline this last little sentence here, starting from I will not all the way down, because he is saying, I cannot even contain my excitement. I am so proud of myself for finding the main source of the Mississippi. He is so happy right now. But that is just his point of view of this. Because if we pay attention up here, it says later explorers discovered that the Mississippi's true source is Lake Itasca. So he thought he had it, and he was so proud of himself. But we know that later on, other explorers discovered the true source, and that it was only 25 miles away from where he was. So we have two very different points of view about this event. And I want us to remember that we have two very different points of view whenever we move on to go do our chart on our graphic organizer on the next page. And a few thought-provoking questions I want you guys to keep in the back of your mind as you proceed out through this assignment would be, what is the topic of both passages? So what are both of these passages focusing on? And we are so smart, we know that the topic is Zebulon Pike's exploration. And we also know why he did it. He was trying to find the source of the Mississippi River. So that was his focus. That was the reason why he went on this mission to begin with. And another thing I want you to focus on is who wrote each article. I feel like that definitely plays a key role in us completing this part over here, because we're about to break it down by point of view. I want us to focus on who wrote what. So we know here this is not the same passage. We can make like a clear divide, like right about through here, of knowing that this is a history article written by George Chester. And then down here, we have the journal entries of Zebulon Pike. So this is written by Zebulon Pike himself. So please make note of that before you move on, that we have very different points of view happening here. So what I want us to do now is look over here. Again, I will not be giving you answers, as much as it's hard for me not to just completely walk you through every assignment. But I want you to be able to do this independently. And again, if you need more of a breakdown of, me modeling this for you, please go watch Monday's mini lesson. I am begging you to go watch Monday's mini lesson. And thank you to all the kids that have actually watched Monday's mini lesson. I greatly appreciate you. But for this one, I will not be modeling it for you, but I will walk you through the steps that I'm expecting, so that you know what my expectations are for when I go to grade it. So what we're going to do first is look here at number 1. It says, complete this point of view organizer by identifying the topic of the accounts. Then list the details that describe the point of view each author expresses. How do the author's conclusions differ? Focus on the fact that they are asking how the author's conclusions differ. We're looking for differences here. So, our topic. What was our topic? We discussed this on the last page. I want you to focus on the topic. So, what took place in both stories? So what was our topic here? Then I want us to break that down and figure out the details about George Chester's point of view. And again, we're going to look back. George Chester's point of view. So we're looking at this article specifically to answer the questions over here. And then if we move to the right-hand side, we have details about Zebulon Pike's point of view. So we're going to pull information here from here. And then, just like we did on Mondays, when it says talk, I know we cannot turn and talk with our classmates the same way that we do when we are at regular school, but I will volunteer to turn and talk to you any day. So, number 2 says, analyze the point of view each author expresses about Pike's expedition. What information did George Chester specifically, include that Pike did not? What is similar and different in the accounts? Can you add any information to your chart? So you can message me a private comment about any of these, and we will just have a super healthy discussion about the differing points of view in these passages. So we can talk about them together. And you guys know I would always love to just have a conversation with you regardless. And if you're even struggling to come up with something, reach out to me and maybe we could set up a Zoom to do this turn and talk together. And I'm completely okay with that. I will always make time for you. So I really want us to still have that dialogue aspect between us, me, the teacher, you, the student. And I want us to continue that just like we would in the classroom. And then I want you to look down here at the writing component. Yes, we still do some form of writing, so we cannot skip this. This is just a short response, and it says to compare and contrast each account's point of view about Zebulon Pike's expedition. Use details. We know what it means when it says use details from both accounts in your response. Use the space provided on page 242 to write your answer. So of course I went ahead and I added in page 242. So we are going to go here and look at this. And again, it says use details from both accounts in your response. When it says use details, that does not mean put everything in your own words and state your opinion. When we use details, we are citing text evidence. So I need to see something that says, for instance, in Zebulon Pike and the Source of Mississippi, the author George Chester stated, quotation mark, and cite some text evidence. Or, for instance, in the journals of Zebulon Pike, the author stated, and cite some text evidence. So we are not just stating our opinion here. Also, I would like to see at least 4 sentences from each of you. So, and I think that should be easy because if we are comparing and contrasting each account, we can write 2 sentences about George Chester's point of view and then 2 sentences about Zebulon Pike's point of view. And if you have any issues coming up with that, please reach out to me. Again, you know I'm more than willing to do a Zoom call with you and provide you with clarification or elaborate on something. So I guess that's it before I start giving answers because that's what I'll do if I sit on here forever. But again, I really just want to say how proud I am of you guys. It's just crazy to see how you guys have taken on this new adventure and you've just completely exceeded all of my expectations. And I am just so, so, so proud of you. So keep up the hard work. And if you need me, I am always here and I am always wanting to talk to you and spend time with you and just be here for you. So please reach out. And if you need anything at all, just message me and keep up the hard work. I am just so, so proud. So have a good day, you guys. Bye.